So we just got the Convergence in from Horizon Hobby. I haven't even taken a look at it yet. Now I have. It's packaged like everything else. It's packaged like the Delta Ray. You got the manual, the plane itself. Oh, I actually take these down. I put styrofoam over the motor shafts. And a little sleeve just to prevent chafing in the packaging. But there it is. Pretty much assembled out of the box. There's not a whole lot to it. It's just one big Delta wing. The only thing you do have to do is put on the two rudders, which just screw on through two screws right there, there, and there. These are already angled, so they just drop right in. Bolt those two on, put in the battery, and you're basically ready to fly. This is the bind and fly version. The plug and plays got pushed back a couple more weeks. I think to the 27th of December is when they're going to arrive in the warehouse, and then they'll ship out to the hobby stores or wherever after that. I'm just going to take these rudders off for the time being. Since this is a tricopter, I was curious to see how they were going to compensate for the uneven amount of torque, and they are not doing it by a swivel back motor. Usually tricopters will have a servo that'll pivot the axis of the motor to compensate for the uneven amounts of torque. So I'm not really sure what they're doing to compensate, but that motor angle looks pretty much level. Yeah, I don't see any angle on that, like pre-angle. So I'm not entirely sure how they're going to, or how they're compensating for that. I'll probably figure it out when I go to fly it. The VTOL part of it, you got the servo horn, then the motor's just on one big swivel on an axle here. And they actually put a protector around the motor wires to prevent chafing and wear and tear on the wires. They actually planned ahead for once. Interesting. These are actually require a little bit of force to move. I believe they're digital servos. I hope they are. They better be. Move it. Alright, so Dave was being loud on the phone, so we're going to pick off where I left off. I think that was with the motors. I think we just said, hey, get out of here. Go.
I'm watching.
Gotta back up. Alright. Battery tray. They're meant for 2200 milliamp 3-cell 30C batteries. This is just the Venom one with the EC3 adapter. That fits in perfectly. Plugs in. See where the CG is on this plane. Oh, it'd be good if I had the rudders in. Oh, I wonder if these are the CG marks. No. Right about there. Interesting. With the servos, they actually mounted the servos vertically and put a little nub here for the bottom part of the servo. I'm guessing they didn't mount it flat is because when a servo is mounted flat, it doesn't really have enough grab on the foam, so to speak, so it'll over time wiggle loose due to just forces from the control horn. So this is the better mounting option, which I'm glad they went and did. We got plastic landing skid on the bottom. That's going to get scratched up eventually. And the other two landing skids here on the wingtips. Right along the trailing edge of, or right before the aileron control surface, we have a plastic support leading all the way down to the wingtip. And this is just to prevent the wing from flexing so much when it goes to land, so it doesn't bend the wing too badly. I think that's weird. And in terms of spars, I need to hold it up to the light here to see it. It looks like the entire fuselage is solid foam. All the wings are solid. On some of their newer planes, they're making the wings hollow, like the Optera is hollow wing. The P-47 up there, I believe, is a hollow wing, and the I forget the name of it, but they're doing hollow wings in a couple of the planes now. A couple of their planes. They have cooling ribs on the pylons for the motors, for the ESCs, which is good. Air scoop here in the back for the rear-mounted ESC, just to keep that one cool too. And there's a small access port here in the front for your FPV stuff that you're going to mount up underneath. Most people will mount FPV gear on the top of the plane, but they actually went ahead and just made that so you can mount it in the bottom. Don't know how many people are gonna go with that. There's actually two screws here, so I'm gonna take this off and see what's on the inside real quick. Alright, so I removed the screws, and actually it's not these two screws that I removed. That's for a camera mount on the inside. You actually remove this big one here. That pulls off, comes right out. We have the flight controller. This will be in both the plug and play and the bind and fly, and then just a small satellite receiver for the main receiver. That just plugs into the serial RX port on the flight controller. But you need this in here regardless if you want to take advantage of the VTOL. If you don't want to do VTOL, then I suppose you could just fix these in place or use your own flight controller if you have one. There's not a whole lot of VTOL flight controllers out there, so it's probably better just to stay with this one. And if you're not going to take advantage of the VTOL option, you might as well just get a Delta Ray and put better motors on it to begin with. So they went ahead and put the power distribution board into the flight controller itself, and this is probably just to keep everything a little bit more simple. But all those wires are just soldered onto the PCB board in there. And here's where you would use a normal receiver if you so choose. You would just plug those in like a normal serial receiver. And there is an update port here for something. I should probably flip this around. But I didn't see any update plugs or USB update things in here. Maybe it's something they'll sell on the side, because I don't think that's not the same thing they use for AS3X or their DXE, which I'm kind of surprised that they didn't do. Fascinating. Take a look into the camera section here. This is where your camera would be. They have a little bit more room if you have a bigger camera, and it's on an angle, so I suppose you might be able to fit a run cam in there. Actually, I think it was designed for a run cam. Yeah, because it's on an angle pointing down, and that's about the width of a run cam, and that's about the hole that a run cam has for its lens. So I actually thought ahead on that one. And then this just screws in to the front. If I can get it back in, there we go. Using those two screws that I removed. There's not really a whole lot to talk about this plane. It's pretty much all one piece. So I think now I'm gonna set it up on my radio to fly it in the back. Alright, so a couple things you have to do before you start flying is move your trim to the lowest possible position for the throttle. And for the flight modes and transitioning, you want to have your different flight modes on channel gear. So there's acro and stability mode. You can assign that to any switch you want. I have it on switch A. And you're going to want hover and airplane mode on switch H. Well, that's what they say in the manual. You can have it to whatever switch you want. And you want that on channel aux 1. And you can see the motors moving a little bit there between the transition mode and the hovering mode. So it's actually on a timer and not really figuring out what speed it's at or anything like that. It's all going off of a timing. So if I flip that switch, it just goes straight back up. So, that being said, give it a little flight here. Dead motor. Oh, horizon. Alright, so I just took off the right motor nacelle here, and I actually found that this plug here, which goes into ESC, was unplugged. I'm not sure if that happened during shipping, and someone just crashed down there. But that was unplugged, so they probably did end up quick checking it at a factory, but it probably just came unplugged during shipping. So that's, if your motors don't spool up, that's probably what's causing it. Maiden flight.
There you have it, folks. Fly with a drone, put those motors down, fly like an airplane. Let's try this remote.
So,
Looked a little shaky there, but that's pretty cool.
What the shaking was hitting the ground effect.
Right, because you're
And
only
the
right.
flight controller was trying to compensate for it, maybe. But another possibility.
So does it feel
is
just
could
like a
have
drone?
been- no, not really. It doesn't quite feel like a multi-rotor while flying it. Well, it does, but not really. What could have been happening was the air from the motors could have been blown out, going back underneath, and then creating a little pocket.
Good job, Matt.
So it would lift up a little bit. So just more of a buffer effect, and that buffer effect is going to be amplified because these are tilted around, tilted downwards. It's kind of like the Harrier with the anhedral it had. The thrust would bounce off the ground, off the flight deck, and back onto the wing. It would actually amplify unwanted movement. Another thing I noticed, it did not have a lot of back pitch. So I was almost full back elevator in a couple of those moments, and it was just barely drifting back. So the CG might be too far forward. It'll have to be something that'll play around with to figure out. Right before I shot this, I did figure out how they compensated for the uneven amounts of torque, and that was through the yaw. They just moved the motors accordingly. For the yaw, same thing with the pitch, but not a whole lot of back elevator or up elevator in the multi-rotor mode. And in multi-rotor mode, the control surfaces don't move. Alright, we're gonna do a couple more videos to show the buffer effect. Yeah, okay. Yeah, once it gets off the ground, it's perfectly fine. But if we bring it back here and start to lower it, it wasn't too bad. Oh, there you go.